What is up? I am Miguel Antonio, and this is the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And on today's episode, we have singer and songwriter and performer Nicole Springer. Nicole is a singer-songwriter and band leader with powerhouse vocals and captivating original music. Her zeal for music and for growing her business is matched by her focus on making a difference in her community through tangible ways of helping local charities. Nicole breaks down some of her unique strategies for thriving in the music industry, and she also shares her story of healing from trauma that stemmed from being kicked out of her home for coming out as gay at 19 years old. And she also shows how finding that healing has fueled her songwriting with the hopes of empowering many others. She has so much humor, so much wisdom to share. I know you guys are going to love this episode.
The Live and Create podcast.
I'm ready. Let's go.
It's all good. So you are definitely an inspiring artist here in Kansas City. Like, I see what you're doing. We met at the middle of the map a while back now, but then just following you online, I'm like, man, this chick is hustling. Like, you're doing so many great things, and you got powerhouse vocals, all these things. But I'm curious, like, so for so many of us, the COVID affected us a ton. But you had all these creative ways to keep building your business and keep getting out there. I was looking at like the telegrams and those kind of things. I was just curious what inspired you to pivot during COVID, and where did some of those ideas come from?
Yeah, well, like everyone else, when the pandemic hit, everything stopped. It wasn't just the gigs that stopped or the opportunities. It was life, and it was a cold, hard look at, where are you going in your life now that it's stopped and you have to look at it. And, it took a couple of months to kind of like process this world, this new reality. But it became clear that I wasn't giving up my music, not after everything I've been through. I wasn't giving that up if I didn't have to. I was going to find a way to make it work one way or another. And so after about a month of just processing and trying to get my mental health on the track that it needs to be in a whole new world, and just playing music and trying to stay sane in that way. Yeah, I came up with the virtual singing telegrams. I wanted to contribute to my family. That's a big part of me, my family, my home. And I wanted to provide, I wanted to help with that. So singing telegrams came to my mind. Covers are something that I do regularly all the time, and I love singing.
I feel
so I know. Yeah. You and I are like, sometimes we switch weekends places and I'm like, oh, there's Miguel.
That's so true.
It's true. And that's great because that means we have work and that there's places supporting music, but you had to get creative at first, around April of last year. I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know when shows are going to be back, like, ever. So just came up with an idea to make some extra cash and try to lift some spirits. And it ended up being just a really emotionally powerful experience. I learned some new music, and then I just got even better at guitar and singing, and it just became about the craft. And thankfully I have somebody in the music community who's kept booking me through the pandemic, giving me regular gigs at places like KC Wine Company and stuff like that. And so it just kept me moving. And there's a Martin Luther King quote, and I'm not going to get it right, but it's something like, if you can't run, walk, if you can't walk, crawl. So I was crawling, but I was moving, I was moving. And sometimes that's the best you can do. And that's enough on those days.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, I feel you. I think so many of us, I know for myself, it took a while. I've shared in a lot of my interviews where, like, when it first happened, I just spent a lot of time drinking and smoking, really healthy choices, and just trying to take in what the hell is going on at this point. And then, it's like figuring out what's each next step that you can take. And, and you had talked about in there that you've been through too much to quit. And I know part of your story is that there was a season where you did hang up music for a little bit. And I was curious if you could unpack a little bit of what that season of your life looked like for you.
Yeah, well, you don't heal when you don't address things. If you don't process your trauma, if you stow it away, it doesn't leave. In fact, it infiltrates your future, and it manifests things that correlate with the sadness that you feel, the pain you feel, the way you feel about yourself. So yeah, music I just had been manifesting great opportunities, but also a lot of misery, a lot of self-doubt, and just some collaborators that, we just weren't on the same page. Nothing seemed to be matching because I wasn't right here. If you're not right here, it doesn't matter. I wasn't enjoying anything. And frankly, I haven't really enjoyed it until recently. I had to unpack my stuff. So I took a break for a year and a half. I kept making music. Believe me, I was writing nonstop, but I didn't play
I didn't part of you.
Yes.
Gotta
it was
let
for
it
me.
keep going out.
Well, it has to be, I always make it about other people. Like, I'm making music to help others. I'm making music to heal. I'm making music to prove myself. But am I ever making music for myself? And I had to understand that music is there for me to heal. I really have been using it as that, but I haven't given myself the credit for that, of like, you're pulling yourself out of this now through your music. And that's huge. And you need to recognize what you're doing, like, and what it means for you. Because if you hate yourself, if you don't recognize what this song means to you or how it's helped you, then how is anybody else supposed to, really appreciate what you're doing if you feel terrible all the time? So for a year and a half, I just wrote for myself, and I don't know what I was doing. It's a fog. I hardly remember that time in my life. And in 2019, I had to make some big moves. So when I was, long story short, when I was 19, I was thrown out and dealt with housing instability and, on the brink of poverty. And for being gay, I was disowned, and I never processed that stuff. That was a 6-year stint of just absolute terribleness and torment and terrible things.
Right.
And I just jumped into music, and I just jumped into a job, and I jumped into relationships and anything I could do to run away from facing like the reality. So
keep stuffing it away, essentially. Like,
so deep, man, so deep down to where I'm still uncovering these stones. I'm like, oh my God, that's why I have these patterns, these habitual things that I say and do to myself. From trauma instead of, because I didn't process it. So 2019, I cut ties with the person in my family who was my enemy from the beginning. And I wrote a song called Hell and released that as a single. And from there, I just played free shows. I busked. I did everything I could do. Like
you got that hustler in you. That's awesome.
Well, I felt like I had to pay my dues. I've been doing music in this town for a decade, but I still felt like I had to pay my dues. That's how little my self-worth is. And so my music now is about building yourself up. It's about overcoming. It's about not even looking back anymore, just completely moving forward. And that's the only way I ever want to live my life ever again.
Now, this is going to be a weird transition, I think. But do you know the movie Central Intelligence with Kevin Hart and The Rock? I'm kind of showing like the kind of movies I like right here. Whoa. I like a wide breadth, but there's a scene where The Rock is talking to Kevin Hart, and he's like, Kevin Hart's talking about like his emotions and like expressing them. The Rock's like, you know what I do? I just stuff them deep down in my heart, and I keep pushing and pushing until I don't think of them anymore. Yep. And the reason I say that scene is because in that moment, I was like, I feel that. It's like, well, in hearing you talk about like where you had talked about like getting kicked out when you're 19. And how you went to all these different things, but not dealing with it. Like, I was like, I know that stuffing down. For you, did it all just eventually kind of overflow before the break, or was it someone that came along and noticed it and said, hey, here's some things to work on? What was it that really kind of, I guess, broke for you to say, no, I'm going to start working on this thing?
Right. Well, I met my wife, Beth, in 2014, and that was the miracle of my life. Somehow, all of my anguish and torment, I manifested the best thing to ever happen to me, but it was still, that was 2014. It took me till 2019. So 5 years of having the most love, support, understanding you could ever want, but it didn't matter because I didn't feel it for myself. So in 2019, I finally I remember the night Beth was asleep and I was out in the living room, and it was 3 a.m. and I was depressed and felt terrible. And I picked up my phone and looked up for a therapy app, and I found one called Talkspace, and I did that for about 3 months. And that gave me all the tools I needed to really take it day by day, give myself grace, and let life unfold in a way that's healthy and happy, as
That's
much as it
amazing.
can be. So yeah,
Yeah.
therapy, music, love. I mean, all those things I needed. And I had always had music, but again, you have to put yourself as a priority. You have to care about yourself, especially in the music industry. You can't be like
God, yeah.
self-hating. They will pick up on that. They will see that, and then the wrong people come in and they're like, ooh, this girl is so self-deprecating. Let's
Right. Like we can
like
we can leverage this. We can do
yeah,
this. Yeah.
we could take advantage of this. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody. I've worked with some amazing people. But
Absolutely. Yes, that's true.
but
But there is
but
a
I
lot of
brought it
people
in.
who want to take advantage
Yeah.
of artists and who they are, especially like you say, in the moment they see that weakness, they want to capitalize
Yes.
on it. Like we've been through broken contracts and all sorts of bullshit
Yeah.
of litigation that showed that people didn't care about you. They cared about the money and what they could leverage out of you. And that's hard. But yes, luckily there are people that have that. But it's cool because I feel like you said, it's almost like this. And I know in my own person, I've dealt for a long time with OCD and depression. And I remember like the counseling was kind of a big thing for me. I remember driving to the counseling place and driving in the parking lot. And then I drove away. And it literally took me a whole other year to drive back in that same parking lot and then finally go in. It's like it was just that
Wow.
long process. But it wasn't just the counseling. It was kind of what I hear even in your story too. It's like I started having community around me, like people who love me, who care me. It's like you could kind of feel almost like people need to feel safe enough to even start dealing with their shit in a way. I don't know if that's kind of how you felt. I don't know.
Absolutely. It really took me I had to set boundaries is such an important thing to me now.
Mhm.
I'm somebody I had an eating disorder since 14, body dysmorphia. I was a smoker. I have an alcohol issue. That's why I haven't been drinking for 4 months now. Boundaries
Awesome.
are hard.
Yeah.
Boundaries are hard for me.
Yeah.
So really I had to set boundaries with the people in my life and say goodbye to the ones that couldn't respect those boundaries. And it was only when I set those boundaries that I had the space and the time to put myself at the front for the first time in my life, and
Yeah.
there is a lot, but that's why therapy is so great. And that's why I'm a huge supporter of mental healthcare for all, but also mental health care, because half of our problems in society could be helped if we could just talk about things, if we could just
Absolutely.
unload and find a healthy way to process the trauma we've been through, because we all have our trauma. Let's
Right.
sort it out. Let's be free. That's what it's about.
Well, and I know a lot of artists listen to this podcast, and it seems like in our world, it's that constant hustle, the thing that we love, and it seems like that's what you love because from what I can tell, following you, it's like you just exude it. You're like, I'm gonna play on the street corner, I'm gonna do telegrams, I'm gonna do corporate shows, I'm gonna do original music, and it's like that is kind of who a lot of us are. We're built that way, so it's
Yeah.
easy to just run past all that, and it's easy to not draw those boundaries as well.
Mhm.
That's a huge thing I know for my own. Really, even in this last year, going through similar things where people who were toxic, that all too often held on to, had to let go and say, you're no longer allowed there. And I think that's such a hard discipline, but a powerful one.
Very.
Powerful.
I mean, when I cut the, this family member out of my life, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. This was a person that I forgave over and over, even after throwing me out and making my life a living hell for 6 years. I still couldn't set a boundary because I was afraid. And fear is a huge part of what stops us from so many things, right? But if you can just muster that strength, if you have just enough love and support in your life to be able to put yourself first, you will set the boundary and it will change your life. And then you can put that boundary in anything that you need to, because you deserve to say what can and can't be a part of your life, your time, and your space. You owe no one nothing. You do not need to sacrifice yourself for anything. So
Hmm.
it's empowering. And
That is.
I'm trying to write about that and put that message out here in the future really soon. So
Yeah, it is. Just hearing you say it is like, oh man, it is. It's so powerful. Your song, I think I'm gonna mess up the title. I never want to be a bitter woman, or I'm never gonna
yeah,
be.
I'll never be a bitter woman. Yeah.
I'll never be a bitter woman.
Yeah.
One phenomenal song, phenomenal
Thanks.
performance. But honestly, like me personally, like I was saying, not to go deep into my story, but there's a lot of things that I'm processing, of communities that I've had to leave, of people I've had to leave behind. And and I'm constantly battling like anger and bitterness and those things. So hearing that song, even though I'm not even a woman, it like inspired it inspired me, encouraged me to like keep going, keep
Mm,
processing through that. What was it that started you in writing that song? What did it come out of this last year? I'm not sure when you released it, or
yeah.
did it come out of that season where the break for you?
Right. Well, number one, I wish I would have just called the song I'll Never Be a Bitter Human, because it was never my intention to limit who that song could reach. So I'm glad you felt it
Well,
anyways. But
I think it did, because
yeah,
it did not hinder my
yeah, but
connection to it at
I
all.
just should, I know. And that was way before I understood boxes that we put ourselves in, even in our songwriting sometimes, right? It's like, I'll never
Right.
be a bitter woman. And it's like, well, you'll just never be bitter. How about that? You'll never be a bitter person. You don't have to box yourself into and label yourself constantly. But anyways, 2020 has changed a lot of things. But no, I'll Never Be a Bitter Woman, I wrote in 2019. And I mean, I've never talked about it. But I, yeah, I suffered a sexual violation and manipulation and often harassment from someone I collaborated with in music. And it destroyed me. And it stayed with me. And so I wrote Bitter Woman 5 years after I'd cut ties with that person. And I was still bitter about it. I was real mad, really mad, because I never felt like I just felt like it just happened and I was the one left to suffer with it, and the rest of the world keeps going, and
Right.
and it's also just such a sensitive subject, up until Me Too. It's like nobody talks about these things. And
Hmm.
so I found a way to write about it, to heal with it without being too specific, and just kind of talking more universally about somebody who you think, who you don't, who spins turns your whole world upside down with that, but at the same time understanding you're never going to let that eat away at you and tear you down. And I had to, I wasn't being impeccable with my word when I wrote it, but I wrote it so I could then believe it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it was a pep talk, and then it became an anthem, so
You're like, I'm not here, but I know where I want to be.
yes. And you have
Yeah.
to fake it till you make it was like my phrase for like years. Fake it till you make it. Even if I don't believe what I'm saying, you have to make yourself pretend like you can to maybe get there someday. That was just my dream, is to not be bitter. And I'm not
Yeah.
bitter. Not at all.
That's awesome. So that led the way. And it sounds
Yeah.
like writing, I know for writing for me as well, it sounds like probably for you, it can be that therapy process. And I'm curious for you, what does your process look like right now? Are you like for example, right now I'm more of a regimented, like here's the hours I'm going to write, or here's the hours I'm going to do some co-writes, and that's how it works. I know some people have different flows. Like what's your flow look like for
Yeah.
writing?
Well, I mean, it's evolving all the time, because things have changed so much. I need to start scheduling it more because I'm so busy, and that's a good thing, but definitely have to make time for it. At this point, I kind of just write when I'm inspired. But most recently, like my single that I'm going to be releasing soon, I've been scheduling a monthly co-write with a friend. His name is David Hill. He's a songwriter out of Nashville. He's pitched songs to Garth Brooks, and him and we pitched our first song in the industry to a band called Taylor Red. They're a country trio.
Okay.
5 million followers on TikTok. They passed. The manager loved it, but they didn't pick it up. But so that's like once a month for my
That's
co-writes.
awesome though.
It's amazing. It's blown my mind. My new single, he co-wrote with me on that as well. And so it's just, I try to get it in as often as I can. I don't schedule it because I've never been able to work like that really.
Hmm.
It's all about inspiration and creative flow and just letting it come when it comes. But of course we want to be working songwriters. So you have to like, you can't just wait for a month for like, oh, I'm not inspired. You have to like make the inspiration come sometime. So it's flexible right now, but I do need to get a schedule because I'm trying to build this as a real original music business with my wife and my new partner, Rick Gordon. So I'll let you know when with the schedule if that works for me.
And that's awesome that you're pitching stuff already
Yeah.
and doing that. So, and are you doing a full length? You're getting ready to work on your own full length album, right?
Oh boy, it's evolved. So at the beginning of the year, I was working on a full length. About a month ago, I was working on a home recording EP, and now
Okay.
working on my single, having that produced and recorded by Rick Gordon. He worked in New York with Monument Records. Willie Nelson, Roy Orbison, and he's absolutely incredible.
A few
And
decent names.
A few decent names, and he works at Belmont. He's a professor at Belmont University in Nashville.
Okay.
He takes an interns for A&R, and he's
Nice.
the kindest person I've ever met. He really is investing in me. He believes in me. And so the goals have changed. So we're making this single. It's the most intense creative recording process I've ever had in my life. And it's opening up everything in me that I've shut down. But next he wants me to send him my next 5 songs to polish up, and we'll see what happens. But I'm really hoping to get
awesome.
it. Yeah. When somebody believes in you, it can just that understands the industry, understands music on that level. It's really validating, and I needed it. My heart needed that. So hopefully an album, at least the single first, and then we'll see what happens next. I don't know.
But it's funny because I remember my last band, we were called Run With It, and there was a band, our first album, I really wanted the full length thing. That's what I wanted. So I kept pushing it. And actually the producer we were working with tried to talk me out of it. I was like, no. He's like, why don't you try to scale it back and do something really, really, really well? And I was like, no, we're going to do this. And then I ended up not liking the product we had at the end because I just pushed it through. And so we came back to record again. And he's like, hey, you going to listen to me this time? And I was like, yeah, let's do less. And let's do it better. I don't know if that's the same conversations you had, but it sounds like maybe that was some of the same process. Because I was laughing as you were sharing it. I was like, I remember having that conversation with Josh where he's like, maybe you should do less and we'll do more on it. It'll be cool.
Right. I mean, it's weird as a musician hearing that without understanding the inside of a producer. It's like, what do you mean? Why only one song? Like I have all these songs.
My songs. These are they need to be in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I have great songs. And that's what, I'm the same. I was the same exact way. I'm like, I need to get out as much music as I can. And I don't know that that's necessarily the right direction, but I'm also a person with a lot of anxiety. So for me, this is great. It's great to scale it back and say one thing at a time. It's worth it. It's worth it to really put your heart and soul into this thing, one thing at a time, and build it. It's, I mean, you can't just get where you want to go. It doesn't just happen like that. And I've had to
It'd be nice if it did, but
I know. I'm like, I'm 35 years old and, Rick, my producer, is like, all right, we got to get your plan together. You got to, figure out where you want to be in 5 years and without having the anxiety of that. Like, can I think that far ahead without being anxious about it? And I think when you just care about what you're doing one day at a time and really put yourself into it, you're going to get there. You're manifesting it, you're doing it. So just sit back, enjoy the ride, take care of you. And, I mean, this song, at least for me now, scaling it back and working on this one song, it's the best song I've ever made, period. And
awesome.
we're not even done with it. So, and I'm being honest, like that's impeccable with my word. And so it's worth it to just, take your time, breathe. So
and that's gotta be a good feeling too, knowing right off the bat, like, yes, I feel confident about this.
Yeah, because confidence is what's always been missing. I don't know. I probably exude confidence. I mean, I'm being really vulnerable with you right now, but I feel like I've been a sad clown in a way throughout my life because, like I said, just a lot of unaddressed things. And I just learned, I'm a great actress, I did musical theater. So, I mean,
it seems like maybe the people who are dealing with the stuff, that's where we gravitate to. I went to drama, I went to music and the stage, and because I could hide there and
get me out of my real life. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like I want to become anything other than what I am. But the fact is, like, there's a person here. There's a whole person that wants to come out, and you deserve to just be yourself for a change. Stop trying to be someone else. And that's the other things. I feel like this is the most honest song I've ever been a part of. It is me. There's nothing in between the lines. There's no put on. And the confidence it's also accompanied with a humbleness. Like I'm very grateful and I don't take anything for granted, So it's just exciting to be in this place. And every musician, every artist deserves to just be at peace with themselves so they can make the best art for them, And then the bonus is that you get to share it and maybe it helps somebody else. I mean, wow, that's what we all should want, right?
That's awesome. Well, and I know for us as we scaled things back, it's like the first full length thing we did didn't really amount to much for us. So we released it. Some people listened to it, and then we scaled things back. We ended up doing 5 songs on an EP, and took like, I mean, we did full demo rough drafts. Like they sounded like a full album, but it was just the demo, and it took months and months and months. And then we actually went in and recorded everything once we did the demo and had everything lined up. And
Right.
honestly, it was that, and it was even out of those 5 songs, there was one particular song that kind of hit for us, and it was that one thing that catapulted us forward, opened so many doors, and it's crazy that how much that process you're going through paid off for us, and it's what I'm even thinking through as I take my next steps in my own career.
Yeah.
I'm starting to work on some new music, got releases coming up, re-releases of some of that stuff that we had to take down, but now I'm already dreaming, got some rights next week where I'm like, what's it going to look like? And so it's an encouragement to hear you say that. It's like, hey, remember that, Miguel? Just slow down, because I want to put it all out there again.
Dude, we are like kindred spirits on that. I'm the same way. And you have to learn to pull back. You know, I'm also like, with social media doesn't help that, right? It's like,
No.
post and I have to look like this and do this and
Selfie and do like,
yeah,
every day.
You know, it doesn't help anything. Yeah, exactly. So again, it's like, just surrender to the process, trust yourself, pay attention. You know, of course, I look at your social media, I look at everybody's. I'm like, what are they doing? You know,
Right.
but it doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to, it's not a comparative. It's not like, oh, Miguel's doing this so much better than me. That's cool what Miguel's doing. Now, what can I do similarly to that? That's me too, because we're all learning from each other, and social media is constantly changing. So we just have to trust ourselves, and that's amazing. And I'm looking forward to hearing what all you're doing, but enjoy the process, man. And it's gonna
settle into it.
Yeah, it's gonna be perfect. It's gonna be exactly what you want if you just, let yourself enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, and that social media thing, I mean, it's the constant, burn. Like for our band, that was a big deal. That opened up so many doors. But yeah, it does feel like such a stressor sometimes. And do you listen to Gary Vee at all? Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a business writer, but I love his stuff. But yeah, it's at Gary Vee, anything. And one thing that encouraged me, and I've been trying to start doing more of, where he's like, quit posting just to get likes, post for what you want to be remembered for. And like this concept of legacy, even down to my songwriting, trying to think, I shared in a former podcast, a guy named Keelan Donovan, which he's a brilliant songwriter. If you get a chance to listen to that one, there was some great stuff he had as he's learned. Like he works for Big Yellow Dog and was one of their staff writers there in Nashville, and the processes he learned. But anyways, we were talking about that concept of writing music. Like I have 4 boys, and so when writing music, that when I die and they're leaving my funeral and they listen to my music, what are they going to be inspired by? And so it's like that keeps funneling through like almost everything I'm doing. Sometimes that takes the stress away. Sometimes it actually adds more stress. I'm like, just chill the fuck out and like just post something fun. Like it doesn't, so it's like you think it'd help, but then I found a way to make it a bigger stressor.
I mean, I think artists can turn anything. If you're anything like me, the best opportunity can come to me, and I will pick through and find what I can be anxious about with it. Right.
Right.
How could this go wrong? Or, I find something to worry about with it, because I want to be realistic. I've always wanted to be realistic, not optimistic, realistic, but
right.
Watch yourself, because when you go below that line and you become pessimistic, you start to plant those seeds and you water them with every negative thought and every negative interaction and doubt. And like I said, I welcome bad things into my life that way, no matter how good the opportunities were. If it's the wrong person, if it's the wrong time, if it's the wrong thing, it doesn't matter. So plant good thoughts in your head, and then, you can just approach everything with that warmth of like, my kids are going to be inspired by this someday.
Right.
What a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing to use to motivate you. That's amazing. I love that.
That's good. That's awesome. Now you've mentioned this word manifest several times. I'm curious what that word means to you.
Well, we have a lot of power. We're connected to the universe. We're one with the universe. We are the universe. So knowing that is fact, then we must have power, because the universe is powerful and we are part of it. So what you exude, what you put out there, how you feel about yourself, how you carry yourself, all of these things pave the way for you. They pave your path. So I'm not saying that if you have the most positive mindset in the world, that means you're going to make $1 million next year. That's not what it's
well,
about.
Damn, I thought I was
I
about
know.
to do that. I was like going to run out.
Right.
Anyways,
Yeah. I mean, and if that's your goal to make $1 million next year, it's amazing. But let me know that plan, because I'll probably try to follow it. But if that's what's your driving force, then I don't know, where is your head at? Like, what are you manifesting in that attempt to just make money? Like, I don't know. So yeah, it's important what you think and how you feel about yourself, because you are creating your future. And instead of overthinking the future, why don't you just create your future right now by taking care of yourself, being healthy, being creative. And I started out my morning today with self affirmations, like, you're worthy of where you are today. Doesn't matter if it's perfect, you're whole, like I will start my morning at my wife and I were just going, back and forth, just, and so anyways, I believe that manifests energy and it manifests your path. So I just feel really strongly about that.
That's cool. I try to start a lot of my days. Well, usually I start the days in the gym, and then after I come back home, because if I try to do anything that I sit down, I'll just fall right back asleep. But but yeah, the journaling, and then I have I think of them almost as like mantras in a way, of things that I try to remind myself of, and I feel like that's been a helpful thing for me to keep a good perspective. So I feel you on that. Just kind of revisiting those things.
Yeah, and the 4 agreements. 4, not 8, 4. If you don't know the 4 agreements.
What are 4 agreements? I don't.
Yes, these are the rules of my life. Period. And I don't have to question them, and I just rely on them. Period. And it's changed my life. But it's be impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions. Don't take things personally, and do your best. That's it.
That's awesome.
Do those 4 things, and I promise you will make progress in your life in ways you've never experienced. And just check it out, the 4 agreements online, and just it's just made me who I should have always been, honestly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Well, the time is flying on there. We got 2 more questions. I wanted to leave some time for those. This is great stuff, though. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the vulnerability as well. I know some of these things aren't easy to talk about, so thank you for sharing. Okay. The idea, live and create. I like to end with the 2 questions. So right now in your life, how would you define living a great life?
I would define living a great life as making yourself a priority and treating others with the same compassion that you would want to treat yourself. I just think our human interactions create the kind of life that we live. So yeah, that's what I would say about that. And then what was the second one? I'm sorry.
That was
all.
I'll get to the second one. Yeah,
okay, got it.
I'll break them down.
So yeah, I mean, the way to live my life is compassion and love and creativity. My purpose is just how I treat myself and how I treat others. And that's my foundation, and anything else after that is bonus and icing on the cake. So be good to yourself.
It's interesting that you say, like, make yourself a priority and then treat other people the same way you would want to be treated. It's like to make yourself a priority is the essential piece, because you can never treat people well. And I think that's really interesting the way that you phrase that. That's cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I believe it. So I do, man.
And then the last question, right now, how would you define creating great things?
I would define creating great things as being vulnerability leads to creating great things, and being open leads to creating great things. Being honest, me abiding by the 4 agreements leads to creating great things. So taking care of your mental health. I know I keep bringing that up, but I'm telling you, like,
that's
that
huge,
it's everything, because this is where I'm at. My life isn't out there. Your life isn't out there either. It's right here. So to be the best creator, to create the things that really mean something to you, you have to care about yourself and take care of yourself. And at the end of the day, that's really what I'm going to be singing about a lot and writing about a lot, because I don't know what else there is to sing about right now than to try to encourage, than to embrace self-love and compassion, and then to try to encourage other people to do the same, because there's a lot of hurt out there. So to create good things, you have to have a foundation of love for yourself and others. And that's just the foundation of everything I do now.
I love it. That's awesome. Can you remind everyone what the 4 agreements are just one more time as they're listening?
Yes. I'd love to. The 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your word. Just be honest. Don't take things personally. It's not, you don't have to do that. Don't make assumptions because you don't know if that's what they really think. It's not true. And 4, just do your best always, whatever that looks like, even if you're just crawling. That's your best. Do it. It's enough. That's it.
Boom.
Boom.
Hopefully that encourages others. I needed to hear that, and let everyone know how to find your music and all that. I'll add links in to it, but let them know here as well.
Sure. Yeah. You can go to my website, NicoleSpringerSings.com, and on all the social medias at Nicole Springer Sings. You can find my schedule, my music, and everything else I'm doing there. I'm on Patreon at Nicole Springer Sings too, if you'd like to support me there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for making the time. That was awesome.
Thank you, Miguel. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.